Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal released earlier this year in the spring, selling 3 million copies worldwide. It was met with lots of praise, and personally, I loved the game. I have been a fan of the series for a long time and is extremely hyped when id Software came out with Doom 2016, essentially revitalizing the series. They had taken the formula from 2016 and went crazy with it. With the faster gameplay alongside beautifully crafted arenas and enemy placement, it just feels like a ballet. Almost like a rhythm game with Mick Gordon's amazing soundtrack. With the addition of a rechargeable dash, it honestly just fits the game and feels perfect for the type of gameplay it's going for. Another great design choice was to force you to utilize your entire arsenal with the newly added weak points. id Software makes sure before each new fight you get a quick tutorial on the demon's weak point and what to look for so you don't just keep dying in frustrating ways. Or, if you're bad, like me, and playing on a harder difficulty, you will end up dying a lot. Luckily, quick tips were added to loading screens to help the player out by detailing weak points of different demons in between deaths in case you didn't understand it the first time, or feel cheated. Thanks id. With the newly added game mechanics, you are constantly switching between all your guns to suit the needs of the rooms and enemies. I love how they modified the gameplay loop with something I like to call the trifecta. It's broken down into 3 simple parts. Need health, glory kill. Need armor, flame belch. Need ammo, chainsaw. It's just endless carnage. To make sure the flow of the trifecta is never ending, the devs decided to make a single charge of the chainsaw regenerate. It's only one charge, but they make sure you have lots of cannon fodder to cut through to ensure you always have some ammo readily available. And the graphics just blow my mind and look absolutely stunning on my 1440p monitor. I kept finding myself just stopping and admiring the area like the roaming demons in the background that look really detailed at the beginning of the game. And I never really experienced any weird graphical issues or anything related to performance. But enough gushing on the base game, let's get into the meat of this review. As a disclaimer, I will be spoiling major parts of the game in the DLC as it is a continuation of the base game. After a long 7 months, the first part of a 2-part DLC called The Ancient Gods just dropped. I finally got around to playing it due to other heavy time sinks. And man, does it really ramp up the game and difficulty. The DLC takes place 8 months after the Doomslayer put an end to the invasion and stopped the collusion with the Khan Maker. Because of this, an imbalance to the world causes the demons to try to take over the Earth yet again. So, to prevent this, the Slayer needs to find his stepdad Seraphim. After searching through a rundown UAC facility and murder a metric fuckload of demons, you stumble upon the key to Seraphim. Doom Guy retrieves the key and the facility starts to fall apart in normal Doom fashion. After a long trek and some swimming, you finally come across the body of Seraphim. Once you upload Hated into the body, it is revealed that they are one and the same. Seraphim then tasks the Slayer with retrieving the Father's life sphere from the blood swamps of Hell in order to return him to physical form. In order to get to where the orb is, you have to fight through 2 trials to show that you are worthy, both in which have their own challenges. After some build-up, you get to the trials and, at least for me, struggle to complete them. Once you complete both of them, you get sent back to the starting area and you have to kill some weird cube things. At first you fight 1 at a time, then suddenly 2 come out and now it's double trouble. Once you assert dominance over basic shapes, the huge demon just chilling deems you worthy and gives you a first-class ticket to where the spear is. When the Slayer arrives, Seraphim tries to tempt Doomslayer into doing the right thing, but he sees past this and says fuck hell, fuck the demons, and fuck you. The Slayer then proceeds to take the Dark Lord sphere with the intention to resurrect the Dark Lord and then murder the shit out of him, thus to end all evil in the world. Whenever he returns to the hub area, all the scientists start to panic and evacuate. However, the best boy says he will follow the Slayer cause fuck it, the memes, why not? The intern then transports you to Urdak to slay some more demons and summon the Dark Lord. After some many difficult rooms, you make it to your objective. Seraphim then legally changes his name to Samir and comes to throw some hands. However, he is some weak bitch, so you just slap him around and just before you land the final blow, the Father comes in preaching violence is bad and teleports him away from you. So as the Slayer walks off, all upset at the lack of ripping and tearing, he approaches where he can summon the Dark Lord. During the summoning, you get a speech about how much of a badass this guy is, Hell's finest warrior and whatnot, to then be greeted by a naked Doomslayer. Cut to black with text on the screen, to be continued. When it comes to the gameplay, it takes the same great core mechanics of the base game with more enemy types and some rooms with crazy configuration. You know how at the end of the game, it was just really aggravating combination of enemies where it just feels endless? Where if you weren't in the gaming flow state, you just die constantly? Yeah, that's what this DLC achieves right off the bat. To try and justify why I'm bad, I can blame it on how it's been forever. Not only that, but they added a whopping 5 new enemy types, if you don't count the bosses. The first one you encounter is a giant tentacle. It scared me my first time, but it's honestly not too difficult except when put in a small arena. I'm looking at you, tentacle in the second level. Another new addition is the static turret-like enemy. It seems pretty easy to deal with, but can make the simplest fight hard when placed right. The Bloodmaker is like the Maker drones, but invulnerable to damage unless they're building up for a big attack where you can attack its head. And for the most painful enemy, the Spirit. This is the sole reason for all of my rage in my playthrough. This enemy can possess any demon and it empowers them. More health, more damage, and they move faster too. If it was them by themselves, then it wouldn't be too hard. But when you kill them, you have to ghost bust it with the plasma rifle in time or they move on to the next demon. And id makes sure that they have another demon spawn right before you kill it to give you a sense of urgency. And if you're not careful and don't have ammo for the gun, you kinda get screwed over. And well, now you have another problem. With this enemy, I was fully expecting there to be more implementation of them. For example, having more powerful demons spawn instead of the same few. But to my luck, and also kind of disappointment, the hardest enemy I had to face was a Tyrant or a Baron of Hell. I was fully expecting them to put a Marauder with the damn thing in it, and then I would have to throw myself at it until it would inevitably die. Now, that's not to say that the other enemies aren't used. It was just, I felt like there could have been more variety. It had even added a way to spice up the old roster with the empowered demons. These demons spawn as a buffed version of the regular ones and are much stronger than their unpossessed counterparts. Upon killing these enemies, you are rewarded with ammo, health, and armor. And finally, there's also exploding pimple things to add to environmental hazards which can damage the player as well as enemies. Now, for the bosses, the Cube and the Trial isn't hard, but with their attack they can give you a debuff that slows you, making the endless waves of Pinkies and Hell Knights able to torment you easier. There's really not that much more depth to it than that. I personally wouldn't classify it as a boss, but more like a mini-boss. The real boss at the end of the game is Samir. I really enjoyed this fight. He didn't really have a huge health pool, and it was just 2 phases long. However, the devs used the new enemies during this fight to show just how creative they could get. The first phase is pretty basic, and you just damage him enough till he retreats to his shield, where you have to successfully take out 2 possessed demons to land a glory kill on him. After this, the arena changes and adds some verticality to the fight. I had some issues with the fight in the second phase, but ultimately it just boiled down to my incompetence. But once you take out a shield again, you go for the glory kill, and, well, you know what happens. Overall, I thought that all the encounters felt great and never really lacked anything. But the downside is that the DLC can be completed rather quickly, as I had completed it in roughly 6 hours with only resets in certain areas. I'm sure if you played on easier difficulties, it could be completed even faster since it's only 3 levels. Although each level is pretty vast and feels longer than the ones from the base game, but you can definitely see the love and passion that the team put into them. For the price point, I personally don't feel like I lost money, but I could understand if some did. So now for the part that really saddened me. I recently found out about this when I dug a little into the soundtrack for this game. Mick Gordon, who is the lead composer from Doom 2016, recently departed from the company. It might be old news by now, but on launch, Mick Gordon was having issues with editing and mixing tracks on the OST and not able to meet deadlines. Eventually, the full OST did come out, but fans were speculating that it didn't feel up to par, as it seemed like the audio waves were more of a bar than having definition like 2016 did. As people were digging into it, they found tweets from Mick saying only a small amount were actually mixed by him. It was then followed by him saying that he doubts he will work with id Software again. Eventually, Marty Stratton, the executive producer over at id, came out and gave his response on Reddit. He has stated that Mick was having issues and that they decided to have the lead audio designer finish off mixing the OST. Needless to say, I loved the OST, and it didn't bother me all too much, but there are still people who were disappointed with the final product. So since they didn't have Mick to do the soundtrack for the new DLC, the OST features 2 new composers, Andrew Hulshult and David Levy. I feel like they personally blew it out of the water and nailed the same quality that Mick had set prior. It still gives that same raw feeling while ripping through hordes of endless demons. So this brings us to the rating. I give it a 4 out of 5 and definitely recommend the DLC as it really adds to the experience and paves a new and promising path for the Doom series. The ending has me excited for the second part to come out. You can find The Ancient Gods on Steam for $19.99, a small price to pay, but definitely worth it. So yeah, that's the review. Doing this video was a learning experience for me, as I've never really had any experience writing out a script or making a review of any kind. I really enjoyed the whole process and look forward to doing more of this and other types of content. So, if you guys feel like I could have done anything different or anything you feel like I did good on, please leave a comment. I really appreciate the feedback and look forward to making more content for you all. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Welcome to the channel.